you have a sense of like
I have the trust that they're learning the same.
X amount of steps, snaps for a defensive lineman is a good number? Or is it?
You know, that's a great question. That's more as we get into training camp and we really feel, guys' condition and guys playing at a high level after a certain number of snaps, and then we know when it tapers off.
Right.
And so once we get a sense with that, especially from our strength staff, and they'll kind of let us know, like, hey, his optimal level is to have this many plays. You see that catch right there?
Nice.
Don't ever say defensive guys can't catch.
Well, I think to go back to what I was asking earlier about, as a team, you can't just think of we need these guys on our side, but obviously there's a ton of firepower on the offensive side, and you go in and spend big on Kirk. And so, one thing you hear a lot is complementary football. And I guess kind of how do you see your role as a coordinator, given that like there's all this talent on the offensive side? How does that influence kind of the way you want to construct the defense and call plays and so forth?
Well, first of all, again, with my history of being a head football coach and also being on the offensive side of the ball,
right.
You always want an explosive offense that can score points, because the best defense is the defense that's sitting on the sideline as we're watching our offense go up and down the field.
Right.
And or they're out there and they're taking a lot of snaps off of us. And so when you see the big picture like that, I'm very excited about the pieces that we have on offense.
Yeah.
But I'm also very excited about the pieces that we have on defense.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the defenses that are returning, but also the guys we've added in the draft and also free agency.
And how do you feel just about like what you have at the edge? I know that was an area that is seen as an area that you can be stronger in.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I think we got some big, powerful guys, guys with good length, good size, that are going to be matchup problems. Now we're not there yet. We got to continue to work and get these guys better at their techniques and understand the scheme. But I'm really excited about that room.
Draft, line, get some nice athletic pieces. Just kind of talk about what that can do for a defense to be able to have.
Yeah, for sure. I've said this for a while, but I said this years ago. In boxing, there's a reason why they don't let the heavyweight fighters fight the lightweight fighters, because usually the heavyweight fighter is gonna get the best of them. And so, defensively, if we can get guys with good size, good length at all three levels of the defense, I think that's gonna be a huge bonus. And you see what we've added in free agency. We've added length, size, and through the draft, length and size. And now we just got to develop these guys, teach these guys our schemes. But really excited about the pieces that we have.
Seems like talking about probably one of the things you'll lean on the most is that experience secondary, right? With Jesse back there, guys like the offense been here for a few years now. You guys be pretty confident knowing the fact you have guys back there who've been around for a little bit.
We do. We have a lot of experience at all three levels. You look at our linebackers; they've played a lot of football. You look at Grady Jarrett and D.O. David Onyemata play a lot of football, and I really feel like at all three levels there's experience. There's things that they've done well, and they know things that they can correct. It's been awesome watching these guys learn this defense and ask great questions, and then go out there and learn from their mistakes and also do things at a high level. And you can just see they're just stacking blocks every single day. I'm excited to get to training camp and get this thing rolling.
Last few years, defensively, maybe had not been the greatest that we had to get to quarterback. So when you think about what you have and what you brought in, what sort of ways do you guys be able to generate more pressure?
Yeah, I think that's always key, and it's not just the guys up front; it's also the coverage in the back end as well. It's got to work hand in hand, and when you can play great coverage and the quarterback can't get rid of the ball, that's going to buy an extra time for whoever's rushing to go get the quarterback. And it's not just going to be on the edge players and the tackles. We're going to have other guys going after the quarterback. That could be a nickel, it could be a linebacker, it could be a safety, it could be a corner. And those are things like schematically that we're doing right now to make sure to give us some extra things that we would need to put pressure on the quarterback.
Separate from football, Jesse seems to have a career in stand-up comedy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he submitted it yesterday. He said you're pretty funny.
That is, well, I don't know about stand-up comedy. That's funny Jesse said that. But, no, and it starts with our head coach. He creates a great vibe, a great environment, an energy, an infectious energy around the building. And I think that just kind of carries over to everybody else. This is a tough profession, coaching, being in management, and as players as well. And you want to make it enjoyable. And so that's great that I hear that Jesse said that. I do sometimes. We'll start off our meeting with a joke, kind of get guys laughing a little bit, and then we'll get serious and talk about ball. But hey, you know what? I'm going to have to thank Jesse for the compliment. That's a good one.
Coach,
Yeah.
just talk to Zac Robinson about, kind of the adjustment period for players learning a new offensive system. Kind of the same question for a defensive system. You obviously have been a defensive coordinator before, a head coach too, but kind of figuring out, how players adjust to a new system. Is that difficult as a defensive coordinator to know that maybe it's going to take like a few months or maybe even a year to necessarily get all the schematics down?
Yeah, the time frame will be a lot faster than that. The guys are already really caught up to speed, and a lot of that work comes from the coaches. We got to make sure we're making these things so it's going to be very complicated to our opponent, but easy for our players to digest. If it's too complicated, then I'm doing a bad job. And so, there's some things last year defensively that we do similar things, and so we keep the same verbiage so the guys know, hey, you know what, that's exactly like we ran last year. But then there's also going to be a lot of new things, but trying to make it as digestible as possible so these guys can learn it as fast as possible, because I want these guys to play fast, I want to play free, I want to play physical. We don't want to hold these guys back by terms and knowledge where they're thinking on the football field, and that's the last thing I want them doing.
Gotcha. And you just mentioned it there, kind of the complicated nature of that, as because you see successful coaches that have really complicated schemes, like all these things they have to remember, and then you see successful ones with very simple things. Like how do you find like the line between the two, kind of having a complicated scheme but at the same time keeping it simple?
It really is. It's a balance, and I've always prided myself on always trying to look at it through a player's lens. Like, let me put the helmet on, let me digest that call, and would I be able to go out there and execute it at least mentally? Definitely can't do that right now physically, but can I do that mentally? And if I can't do that, then us as a coaching staff, we need to go back to the drawing board and go, no, we need to make this thing simpler. Now, as we keep moving forward here, we'll start adding more layers, and there'll be a recall of, oh, I remember when Coach put this in back in April, back in May, and I can use that information for this new call that we're putting in August. And so it's just about putting it in layers, make it easily digestible, and we'll just keep building this thing, and right now we're on the right track.
And last question for me, how much does that change once the pads start coming on and tackling actually happens?
Yeah, that's where the advantage goes back to the defense. Right now, advantage offense right now. Stay off the ground. We can't touch anybody, which is part of the NFL offseason, which is the way it should be. But we definitely think when the pads come on and now the pass catchers can get hit, the runners can get hit, we can try to force the ball out, advantage defense.
So tell me a little bit about what the last few weeks have been like in terms of install and getting guys. I know y'all can't go 100%, barely like 25, but what's kind of the acclimation process been like for this offense?
It's been great. We've obviously started with the foundation of everything right when these guys got here, which now it seems like it's been 6 months, but we've got a lot of good work in. Obviously being able to hit the field and do this stuff live on the grass with the guys has been awesome, but it's been a slow build, just that's the way we kind of designed it. Wanted to make sure that we're teaching it incrementally and where it's digestible for these guys. So they've done a great job. We have so many smart players and they're so into it. They all love ball, and so it's been cool to see the stuff that we're talking about in the classroom show up on the field. They're playing fast, they're playing decisive, they're getting more comfortable with how we're calling things and how we're doing it. It's a completely different system, and so the guys have done a great job, and it's a testament to how great job the coaches are doing, coaching in their individual position rooms, and then the players just being able to study on their own and stay up on their stuff, and it's been cool to see it all come together. Still got a couple good weeks before we break for the summer.
When it comes to obviously quarterback stuff, we have to talk about it because it's the most important position, but with Kirk Cousins, he was talking a couple weeks ago, and he said, my favorite part of this whole offseason stuff has been sitting in the film room, watching film with the guys. What are kind of some of his traits as you're watching film with him that he displays?
Yeah, he's incredibly cerebral. He's seen so many different looks. He's got great recall. He can recall things from, when he had Clint Kubiak as his offense coordinator, and then obviously recently with O'Connell, and he can kind of, take some of those things that he's had with Kevin the last couple of years, apply it to what we're doing here. There's still some new stuff, so he's just still learning a few new things, but you see right away how well he sees defenses. Hey, what if we put this on this? And he just sees the game in such a great way. That is why he's been such a good player for a long time. But he's been great in there. He loves it. I mean, he's so detailed with everything he does as you guys get to know him and see. So it's been a lot of fun to just hear his perspective on it, because every quarterback, you're in different quarterback rooms, and there's different perspectives that all these guys have, which is what makes them good. So he's been a blast to be around, and it's just been a lot of fun to work with him.
How well versed was Kirk in the offense already? Because it was pretty similar when he was in Minnesota.
Very similar, yeah. Kevin, O'Connell took from the Rams, obviously, and did a lot of the same things. We're kind of in a combination, between what they've done here in the run game and some different things, and what we've done with the Rams. And so it's been a good combination to where Kirk's having to stay up with it, and there is some new information with it. So it's been a good collaboration with all the coaches across the board, and Kirk's got, he knows everything because we've installed it, but there was definitely still some learning with some new things.
How nice is it to have someone who already has at least a little bit of an idea of what you're talking about?
Oh, it's great. I mean, as a first time, this is, my first time doing it, and so having the comfort of a veteran quarterback like Kirk that's coming from this system, couldn't ask for anything better.
Zach, kind of bouncing off of that question, learning a new offensive scheme can be challenging, certainly for players. I remember when Kyle Shanahan was here, Matt Ryan talked about it kind of took it first year to kind of master the system. Same with Steve Sarkisian. As a guy who's actually played too, how difficult is it to sort of learn a new scheme and get it to where you really want to get it to where what you want it to be,
Sure.
instead of learning it kind of on the fly?
No, that's a great question, and that's everybody's different, and that's going to be hopefully where we can all get to a point. We're going to break for the summer. Those guys are going to go off on their own, still study and still work out and be ready, and then hopefully once we hit training camp, we hit the ground running. These guys, we're just preaching, just play fast, no matter what, play fast. And so I think guys are getting that, but is it going to take, is one guy going to, peak when we're ready to start the season? Is one guy might take a little bit longer? Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but in order to truly master a system for a quarterback, I mean, you probably feel better going into year two. Like if you're talking about Mike, like going into year two next year, like that's going to be way different than how he feels right now, where Kirk has already mastered the system. And so there's definitely, with each player it's different, but I know from a quarterback standpoint, that second year in the system, you definitely feel pretty good.
When it comes to working with Kyle Pitts specifically, picked up the fifth-year option, and over him talked a lot about how much belief that there is in the building about what he can do. When you were looking at what this offense could be, and now having the chance to work with Kyle day to day, what most excites you about his potential?
Everything. There's so much in there. Obviously you guys see the athletic traits and what he can do when the ball's in the air, what he can do with the ball in his hands. I'm excited about him as a blocker. I think that's untapped, and he's willing and he wants to do it. He wants to be a complete tight end, which has been what he's preached from the jump. And so seeing him make those strides, seeing what Koger and Patrick Kramer have done in that room with him, has been awesome. But he has so much flexibility with what he can do as even an inline blocker, and then he's split out wide, and then he's a lot of versatility. So he's done a great job. He's learning basically two different positions, because there's some tight end and there's some receiver, and so he's got a lot on his plate, and he's handled it really well. And so just excited to see him continue to get more comfortable in the system, and the sky's the limit for what kind of season he can have.
That versatility that he has, how do you envision kind of using a guy like that, Kyle?
Yeah, I think a number of different ways. We're scripting practice for tomorrow, and there's just like, oh, what if we did this? What if we did this? So I mean, it's really, your mind can go in a lot of different directions with somebody like that in a good way. So we'll move them around the formation. We'll use them as a blocker. We'll use them as a receiver. We'll use them all across the board. So that's something that a lot of these guys possess too, with Bijan and Drake and Mooney and Charlie Warner. That's the versatility of the group is what's really exciting.
Let's kind of talk about what it's like to have a lot of veterans, especially like Jesse Bates and guys like that, in that room to be able to work with them.
Well, starting off, Jesse had a great year last year, and then we got AJ who's coming back. Like you said, we do have a lot of veteran guys in there, and it's just putting the pieces together. With the defense, Jimmy wants to run, with Rye wants to run, so we're just in there, collaborating on what we're trying to get done in that room.
Yeah. So just talk about, obviously Jesse had a big year last year, 6 interceptions, all-pro and everything like that. So just kind of like the quarterback of that defense. So just how easier does it make your job to have somebody like that on the back end that's going to do that?
Well, anytime you got leadership, a guy who can actually, go in and talk about the room, talk about how he wants the room to look, and then everybody else kind of fall in line, it becomes very easy as a coach. Your job is to get the guys information, and that's their job to go out there and play. And I think Jesse and AJ and those guys are taking that leadership role. Rye come in, he'll kind of challenge the guys about what are you thinking, what are we doing here? And then those guys give him answers. And I think that's what we're trying to do, to get everybody on the same page. And, hey, you guys go lead. And once it's player-led, you become a lot better football team.
So you've been with a couple different staffs now. Just kind of talk about the difference between the previous and how things are now.
Well, I mean, to me, it's different. Like I said, I was new last year, to a staff that already had been established for 2 years. And then, being held over from last year to this year, you see Rye's energy, you see Ryan in all the rooms. Basically he kind of talks to guys about what he wants them to be. They may not be there yet, but he's putting something in their brain of, this is where I want you to be. And to me, it's more like you're getting the guy to picture himself way better than what he may see himself as. So to me, in the offseason, I think he's doing a fantastic job of getting the picture that he wants the players to be. And then all of a sudden, when it happens, it's not a surprise to you. And to me, I see that, from what Rye is actually doing.
Coach talked about how detailed things are in that secondary room when you guys are going through things. You said with him being an old secondary guy, it's kind of hard for him to want to stay out and let you do your thing. But just kind of talk about kind of just that alone and just kind of how Coach Morris does this thing.
Well, it's always that. To me, I've been fortunate enough to be around the league to have 3 different head coaches that have been DB coaches. So I'm not a stranger to that. And I know when Rod comes in the room, you kind of see that he has that same edge that Pete Carroll had, that Jeff Fisher had. And all those guys are really, really great at what they do. So, but what I like about them, no matter who they are, they let you do your job. And it's like, hey, I hired you to do a job. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen to you. And I don't want you uncomfortable, but I want you to do your job. And I think that's the thing that Justin and myself and Lance is doing, is that we go in and he may bounce the ideal off, but he's letting us do our job. And I think that's a sign of a great head coach who has coached that position, who really think, want to get in there and do that job. And they're like, nope, I hired you to do that job. I'm going to let you do it.
Coach, just talking with Jimmy, he talked about wanting to keep the defensive terminology fairly simple for guys that, they're not thinking too much out there on the football field. Is that something that the defensive backs have kind of reiterated or kind of shown to you that, hey, they're not thinking, they're just kind of doing it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we're trying to get our guys to, to adopt. Hey, look, what's easy for you guys? And when you tell us, we'll adopt that for you. But a lot of times, guys, when you got a new staff, you're kind of afraid. And that's a good thing that, having Jesse, AJ, Mike, and all those guys who've been here from last year, they're not afraid to ask questions. And I think that's what makes the young guys even better. Like, okay, if they're asking questions, I can do the same thing. So we ask them questions. You give us the stuff that you want us to do, and we'll go implement it. We'll talk to Jimmy about it. If they want to do it, fine. If they don't, at least you ask, and they gave us some questions.
Gotcha. And you just mentioned a second ago, but how difficult is it kind of going from coaching staff to a different coaching staff and learning that new terminology to where, it is a new defensive scheme, but you kind of want to keep some familiarity there with the guys so that they're not too confused?
Not really. Players are used to that. I think, coming from college to high school to college, college to the pros, that they're kind of used to making adjustments. And then even coaching staffs, they know that one guy leaves, another guy come in, they're going to do their stuff. The hardest part is for coaches, more like myself, who was held over, and now I got to go learn a new system. And so I'm more of a grinder. I'll write everything out and do that, and it's like, okay, this is what you want. So I'll ask Jimmy, I'll ask Rye, I'll ask Justin, is this what you want? Then you know what? Once we'll do that, we'll go implement it in our room. So I'm conscious of what they want first before I take it to the players.
Gotcha. And apologies if you've already been asked this
No,
question,
you haven't.
But talking about the secondary specifically, we all know what AJ can do, we know what Jesse can do, but what are some of the things that maybe some people may not know about the secondary right now? Some guys who may be flying under the radar in Europe?
Just like Justin was talking about, we got Mike Hughes, who I thought I knew Mike in Minnesota, and then he's been around, and all of a sudden he's coming back, and he looks like that guy that was at Minnesota. D. Alford, I think D. Alford is taking another step. You look at we got another young kid who you guys probably hadn't seen, but we call him AJ too because his name is AJ, so we put a little 2 with it so they don't get confused. But I think he's going to be a good football player. We got a couple of young guys that was here last year. And then you look at our safeties, we got DeMarco, who came from Alabama. I think he's stepping up. Him and Richie doing a great job. So those guys know that they're competing, but they're competing in a way to where we're going to get better at it. We're not competing against each other. We're competing to be the best secondary in the league, and that's kind of what the standard that those guys really want to set.
Talk a little bit more about D, too. He's a guy who came in a couple years ago, kind of grinded his way up, and now seemingly he's going to have a bigger role this year. Just talk about his climb to where he's at now. Where do you think he can go from here?
Well, D reminds me of a guy that we had in Green Bay. Like the last time, Keyshawn Nixon, good football player. He really hadn't done a lot, and then all of a sudden you get thrown on the scenes. And, he started coming in early, getting film, understanding what he's supposed to do. So the first year he was okay. Then last year I thought Keyshawn took a big step under Justin. And then D, this is his second year, You need to take that next step, and the way you take it is not going to be running faster. It's going to be using your brain faster. And I think that's what the step that he's doing right now. We talked to him a lot about you are the quarterback of the defense, so act that way. And you know what? Make those calls and put everybody else in better position to make their plays. So really what that does is challenge him to know what everybody else is doing. And now you can't just be selfish with your job. You got to help everybody else. And I think that's the step he's taking right now.
Going into the film room right when he came here, is that kind of more veteran thing that you would see out of like a typical veteran guy, or is that just like Kirk is unique to that?
There's the guys across the league that absolutely do that, and there's it's not a surprise he has had the success that he's had in this league for such a long time by the way he goes about his business. Like, you hear the term a pro's pro all the time. Like, he is the definition of a professional. Like, everything he does, how he carries himself, everything has a purpose. Every single time he's coming into a meeting, like, all right, this is what I want to get done. This is what I want to achieve. Like, I'm writing notes. Hey, I wrote notes down. Let's go over this stuff. Like, everything is all about business. In every quarterback room, every position room across the league, there's banter, there's downtime to kind of cut up and joke, but there's always time for that. But when it's time to get down to business, like, he is all about it, and it makes for a very professional room. But at the same time, we have our fun as well.
He's been described as a teacher. How have you seen that in like meeting rooms and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I remember it was one of our first offensive meetings that we had as a whole group. Zach had him get up and kind of go through the cadence so everybody could hear his voice and all that stuff. And, he pulls out his notepad. He's like, all right, guys, here's what I want to talk about. And, like, it was almost like he was having a presentation for the entire offense, our very first meeting. It was good for coaches. It was good for the players in the room to open up their eyes and be like, oh, wow, this guy's about business. This is the guy that's going to lead us. This is the type of professional and type of quarterback that you want when you talk about a prototypical, franchise quarterback. Like, that's it.
When it comes to just like the playbook and opening up, like how much, like with him being a veteran, can you open it up right away? Do you feel like he knows a lot more than we would know when it comes to the offense?
Yeah, for sure. And with Kevin O'Connell coming from the Rams, like, a lot of this offense is very similar. So there's not a lot of new things. There is some new stuff that obviously Zach did in LA that he brought that Kirk is currently learning, but there's a very large portion of this offense that he already knows and knows down pat, which is good because you can already jump to those 300 and 400 level conversations. You don't need to go back to the basics. So there is it does help you get along with some things and go through stuff where, at the same time, for the most part, he has way more experience in the offense than even I do or some of these coaches have. So it's good to learn from him. He's learning from me, vice versa. It's a very good room.
Do you feel like when he's out in the field that you kind of have to, like, I don't know, reel him back a little bit now that he's getting a taste of, like, maybe that he's able to jog a little bit, throw? I mean, what has it been like?
Oh, yeah. He's progressing great. Ever since the first day we got out there, we were all surprised at how far along he was and how much he wanted to do. And obviously, he wants to be out there every single snap, doing every single rep, which he has been so far. And it's really helped our progression as an offense going through this thing, not having him not be out there. He's been out there every single time. So the way we're going through it right now has been good, and he's helping push everybody.
Obviously, it's the story of the century with Kirk and Michael Penix in there. So talk to me just kind of maybe the dynamic and how valuable it is, even just for Penix, to have someone like Kirk to learn from.
No, it's great. Like, it was when I came up to the NFL, having a veteran quarterback to learn from, and a guy that's gracious enough with his time and everything that he wants to say. He'll sit down and explain things to you, take you through his process and do all those things. Like, it's a great room because you have so many. I mean, you got Kirk Cousins, who's in year whatever, and Mike Penix, who just came in here. Different levels of the career, different levels in life and all that stuff. But and having me and Zach, who have played the game, and having other guys, Taylor Heineke's got a bunch of experience in this league. Like, there's a lot of experience of ball from all different aspects in our room, and it's been great so far. And we're all learning from each other and talking with each other. It's open conversations every single day. It's been great so far.
So is it more Kirk maybe kind of helping Penix, or is it more Taylor kind of helping him? Like, is it a mix?
Yeah, it's not one way or the other. Everybody's, it's good to hear, even if you run, because everybody runs the same plays in this league. You just call them different things and you look at them differently. When you hear it, even from Kirk's perspective or my perspective or Taylor's perspective, just hearing different voices maybe explain the same exact thing can open up your mind to thinking about something differently. And it's, sometimes having a lot of cooks in the kitchen, create something new and get some new ideas in there, and it's working out well for us right now.
This might seem like a silly question, but like, as a quarterbacks coach, having a left-handed quarterback, does that change?
That is tough.
Yeah.
That is very tough because, you got to flip your brain, whether you're talking about footwork, for a right-handed quarterback, it's a 7-step, 8-step, all these different things. You got to flip it in your head. So this is my first time coaching a lefty quarterback, so that has been a process for me. But Mike can understand it. He can flip it. When I accidentally say something from a right-handed perspective, he's like, "Yeah, I got you. I've been dealing with this my whole life." So he's been pretty good about it.
I was gonna say, so it is challenging. Like, you kind of have, there's a total difference, and even just from the spin as well. I mean, did you hear from any of the receivers or anything that it's a little bit different catching from a lefty?
Oh, it is. It definitely is. Just the way, when it falls off a different direction, it just takes a little bit of judgment. You got two different jugs machines where one jugs machine spins right, one spins left. They're going to go catch from both sides. So it does. It takes a little bit of getting used to. It's a little bit different for sure. There's not a lot of lefty quarterbacks in football, in the NFL. You could name on one hand how many there's been kind of in the past 20 years or so. So it's definitely a little bit different, but it's a good thing.
Can it be an advantage though, maybe, since there aren't that many lefties for a team? Like,
you get that question a lot throughout the whole draft process and all that. It's like, does it make a difference? And like, not really, other than just kind of flip it in your head. And we have one of our coaches that's in Miami with Tua was one of our coaches we had here. Chandler Henley a long time, and I spoke with him a little bit just because he used to be in the quarterback room there, and you do have to flip your brain, and you have to start thinking kind of in reverse.
Now that you've gotten Michael in the building, is there anything that stuck out to him that you didn't see on tape?
It's very early on. We've only had a handful of practices under our belt, but I just love how he's going about his business and going through his process. Like, even when we were rookie mini camp, he's out there. Obviously, we've all left, and we were all home for the night. And, we have guys that are staying out in the dorms right now because they're still getting here. And, Mike's having walkthroughs with the other rookies out there on the field at 9:30 at night. Like, he's a hard worker. He's a guy who's coming in eager to learn. He's humble. He's gracious. Like, everything about him is exactly what we expected the guy to be. And then, obviously, on the field, as a player, he is a treat to coach because he's so extremely talented.
How much were you involved? I mean, obviously, you didn't make the pick or the decision, but when it comes to they were looking at him at number 8, like, did you have a feeling maybe that when did you have a feeling that the Falcons would or did you?
Well, obviously we had internal conversations that it was a possibility, but as far as decisions, that is not my realm right there.
How excited were you? I mean, like, what stood out about him? Like, just the team on tape for you?
Absolutely. In a lot of ways, he is very similar to the way Kirk plays the game. They're both guys that extend the play from inside the pocket. Like everybody knows Mike coming out of college, like not a big scrambler, not a big runner. Neither is Kirk, but people might view them as different players on the outside. But for our offense and how we want to do things here, they both extend plays from inside the pocket with their vision, with their anticipation, the field, and the ability to make those little subtle movements in the pocket and still deliver the ball downfield while keeping your eyes up. And for our mind, like this was a guy that plays the game very similar to Kirk. And as far as the future down the road, that's a transition that's going to be extremely seamless, running the exact same offense. Not like a guy like you have another quarterback that has different stylistic play, but in our minds, they play the game very similar.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. So, like, you kind of have a younger Kirk, almost kind of, not exactly,
yeah, not exactly.
But like stylistic-wise.
Yeah, they both have their strengths and weaknesses of their game. But for the most part, as far as a pure pocket quarterback, like in that sense, they're very similar.